And welcome to Justice Served TV. We're in search of Linda Kenney Baden, and we'll track her down. But tonight, Jets former quarterback Mark Sanchez, does he have a condition caused by his professional football career that may have contributed to his arrest? And how about the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case? I will just quote what the judge quoted: "You need to be."
Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
I think that's a good question. Where are you? Are you there? Is your audio working?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Because it wouldn't let me sign in. So I was signed in as a guest, then I had to re-sign in. Then it wanted to verify it was me, and I think I'm signed in.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, everything seems fine.
I can post a comment. I can say hi all, and if you see that comment, that's a good thing.
Well,
Yeah,
you're
look at that.
definitely there somewhere. There it is.
There it is. It was signing me in as Justice, and then it had deleted. So I'm here. I made it right into the wire. Did you do the thing that
you missed the open? So you have no idea what we're doing. You missed the open. So we're gonna talk first of all about Mark Sanchez, and then we'll get into the Fitzsimmons stuff, which was so off the wall today. If it weren't Massachusetts, I would have never believed it, but it was, and it is. So we'll get to that. But we began talking about the Mark Sanchez case yesterday because, of course, there was more information released. We got the probable cause affidavit. We did not go over that. Probably we'll look at it a bit today. But there's an interesting issue that you brought up, and I've heard others, they probably just stole it from you. I've heard others mention it since then, and that is, the impact of a professional football career. And by impact, I mean impact. TBI, traumatic brain injury, other issues that maybe when combined with alcohol may cause an aggravation of what you might normally do under the influence of alcohol. Don't know, but
we don't know because we're not saying that Mark Sanchez.
We're just exploring
PTE or anything like that. We're exploring what issues will there be explored in the lawsuit that has now been fired by the person who did the stabbing.
Yeah, are you kidding me? The ink was not even dry on the probable cause affidavit. And this gentleman gets his lawsuit filed. We have a great guest on. Do you want to bring the guest on now? How do you want to work this?
Yeah, let's bring the guest on, and we can, as we work through all the issues, we can do it. Yeah, there we go. This is my friend Branson. He's wearing. I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, we're getting echoes through Brad's whatever Brad's got open there.
Yeah.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, we're getting an echo. So
maybe your audio is something open.
I don't have. The audio is playing straight through the monitor, and that's it.
Interesting. Yeah, when you talk, it's fine, but we hear like we're in a football stadium.
Oh wow! Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Is there any other phone? Do you have a phone open or anything like that?
No, I have no other devices on at all.
I think we should let Brad sign out and sign back in.
Sure.
How's that?
Okay,
no problem.
Let's do that. And in the interim, we have both the probable cause affidavit and we also have the civil lawsuit. I think we should at least touch on the probable cause affidavit because it has all the underlying facts that obviously will be part of any civil case. So let me go to, and there are a lot of pages, but let's just see if we can hit some of the high points, right? Again, this is what the cops come up with after they've done their best to suss out what exactly has happened. Let me get that a little bit larger for us. Okay, that's probably a little bit too much. There we go. So just to hit the high points here, we know generally what happened, right? It just was a weird story about the grease truck driver blocking the alley that apparently Mark Sanchez was doing wind sprints in, because isn't that what you do, at or about midnight? I don't know. He was at a pub, a bar at the time. Let me see if I can hit some of the high points, if I can read them here.
And then we can compare that against the complaint that was filed.
Yeah. This first page, identifies most people, but doesn't really get into too much of the detail here.
So I see our guest has now entered the studio, Brad Sohn. Before we bring him on and see if we have this sort of issue, I know Brad. I've actually co-counseled the case with him. Brad is a major NFL players' rights attorney. He has the largest, and this will be very important when we go over the Karen Reed case, the largest judgment by a civil jury ever on a Monell claim for 1983.
And what is that? What is a Monell claim?
Monell claim is a civil rights claim against a governmental entity. And he also is an expert pretty much on football players with any injuries they have, especially if they are possible developers of, CTE, right? So, and I know a little bit about that, obviously, because my client and also Brad's client in the civil suit against the Patriots, Aaron Hernandez, after he died, his family donated his brain to Boston University, who studies brains. And for a 28-year-old, it was the worst case of the football injury, shall we say, to the head that they had ever seen at that time. So.
Wow.
But that's an independent issue from whether or not somebody's guilty of a crime. I mean, that's a whole independent issue. But we want to explore all the areas here.
Yeah. So let's look at a few of the highlights from this, then we'll bring Brad in, maybe get into the civil paperwork at that point. So this is just the key at the bottom of this first page is that the detective goes to Mr. Sanchez and he asks him what happened. And all he could remember was grabbing for a window. Mr. Sanchez said he did not know who did this, meaning the injury, and where it happened. So total blackout, which is an interesting element to the case because, again, assuming we believe him, it's odd for such a dramatic series of events to happen, or maybe it's not, and him to have no real recollection of what exactly it was. So
maybe that's why he didn't feel the pain of the stabbing too.
Yeah, when we saw him wander down the street, as we saw him in that surveillance video, you could say he was staggering slightly, but you could be doing that if you're drunk. So that doesn't look. I mean, it didn't look to me like he doubled over. He was not experiencing what I think you would experience if you'd just been stabbed multiple times. Let's see. We have here. Let me get a page numero dos, and we can see what else is on this page. Stand by. Okay. And a touch larger, please. Thank you so much. Let's see. So the detective responds to the scene. He arrives at 1:10 a.m. He gets there, and he's advised that the two hotels on either side of the alley, remember this is the alley, this is where the incident occurred, where the wind sprints were taking place. They had surveillance of the event. The two hotels located on either side where the incident occurred were the Westin on one side and the Indianapolis Marriott downtown. The detective went into the Westin to look at the video, but the video quality was poor. I'm amazed at that. How the hell do you have poor quality video in this day and age? Is it laziness? They don't want to spend the money for. Yeah, but it's so cheap. For $50, you can get a crystal clear 4K image to go to one of the hotel desk computers. That's no excuse. And when something like this happens, it just points out that if it's cost cutting, you probably should go to a different hotel. He's walking. Detective says he's walking to the Marriott to review their footage, and they have not released any of this unless it came out just in the last hour or so while I was getting set up. But I've seen no other video released other than the one of him kind of wobbling down the street. They first thought, he says here, he stated that he's talking to a guy identified as BB. He was in the location picking up his kid when he saw a larger male wearing a black shirt and another male that was a truck driver interacting with each other. BB at first thought they were friends and didn't pay much attention to their interaction as his vehicle was facing north and he was only observing through the side mirror. So BB then thought it was odd because he thought the two men were using their cell phones to record each other. Now, we heard that's, in fact, what's out there, right? Obviously, that's not been released either. Then he noticed that the truck driver tumbled over to the opposite side curb, and the male in the black shirt standing over him. BB thought that they might have been wrestling or something. Then the male in the black shirt, which we're assuming is Mark Sanchez, ran northbound in the alley, and the truck driver stayed with the truck. BB did not see anything further and said he did not know what happened, but assumed it was kind of serious because police started to show up. Yeah, good tip.
Right, good tip. That's a good clue.
Detective State and then released BB from the scene. They began collecting even further information. Let me move on to page 3 of the document. I think there are 5 pages in total. Let's see. Stand by. Number 3. Yeah, there are 5 pages. And remember, they put this together within a pretty quick period of time after the arrival on the scene.
Right. And then subsequently, within a pretty quick period of time, held a press conference to charge Mark Sanchez with a felony assault as opposed to a misdemeanor.
That's right. And they greeted him at the hospital for that. The warrant was granted, and Detective Edwards collected the items, signed a chain of custody voucher, and transported them back to the aggravated assault office, where the detective took custody and placed the items in the property room. The detective then reviewed the video from the Marriott, saw a male believed to be Mark Sanchez jogging northbound in the alley from the direction of Maryland Street. Sanchez runs toward a large box truck that is backed onto the loading docks at the Westin Hotel and goes behind the truck and then reappears, still heading northbound. Mr. Sanchez then heads to Washington Street and is out of view for a little while. Mr. Sanchez then reappears, heading southbound, and approaches the delivery truck again and goes behind it before reappearing and approaching the driver's door. It should be noted at this time, the PT, and that's the guy who filed the lawsuit. His last name is hold on a sec. I got it here somewhere. We'll get to that in a second here, but PT is how he's identified up to the point he lawsuit. Anyway, he was backed on.
His name is Perry Toll, but he wasn't. Toll. That's now how he was identified. He's now identified because he filed the lawsuit.
Yes. Again, he's PT in all of these affidavits. PT was backed onto a loading dock area at the Westin, performing his assigned duties, aka slurping grease out of the kitchen, when he was encountered Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez approached the driver's side of the truck, opened the door, and began a conversation with PT. I don't know if they're suggesting there was audio on this or not, because I don't know that there would be, but maybe. Mr. Sanchez and PT stand by the driver's side door for a few minutes, and then PT walks over toward the security office doors of the Marriott. At this time, PT is out of view of the camera, and Mr. Sanchez is seen standing near the front of the truck. Moments later, PT reappears, walks toward the passenger side of the truck, and Mr. Sanchez follows him.
Follow is an important word here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's not exactly avoiding, is he? Then PT is seen walking back around to the driver's side, and Mr. Sanchez is right behind him.
Important turn of events.
The two appear to have an interaction at the driver's side door, and then PT walks back towards the front of the truck. Mr. Sanchez is following again, and PT is seen walking backwards away from him, trying to retreat. Mr. Sanchez is now seen moving around to the front area in the front of the truck. And wouldn't it have been great if I had time to stitch all of these documents together so I wouldn't have to be doing one page?
Well, I did send different things to you, including a complaint in separate formats.
Yeah, and sometimes I have a chance, because what I have to do is print them, scan them, and regurgitate them as a whole document. And I just did not have time for that. So bear with me as we move on to page number 4.
And as you know, with StreamYard, if you hit the plus and you just move the picture in, you can't enlarge it. So you do what.
Yeah, this is much better with helps a little bit to be able to enlarge it.
Right.
Yeah, it helps a little bit. This is kind of a narrow file, so it's not, you can't really push in as much as you might with some others, but we're going.
I hope Brad is listening to all these retreats.
Yes.
I hope he's counting them.
Okay, moving on. And then P darts toward the driver's door again. Mr. Sanchez is seen running after PT, and the video shows Mr. Sanchez grabbing and throwing PT towards the wall of the Westin. It appears that the two men are now fighting, genius, between the large metal green dumpster and the truck. The fight continues up against the dumpster, and then as a vehicle is driving southbound in the alley, the two men continue fighting and are now moving out towards the middle of the alley. Mr. Sanchez is then seen throwing PT to the ground on the west side of the alley just as the car passes. PT stands up from the ground, and Mr. Sanchez is standing there for a brief moment before turning and running northbound towards Washington Street. So that's a pretty good video.
Remember,
like
PT
to me.
is also hard of hearing. There was an issue of hearing aids and all, and all. So there's, I don't know if they talked about the pepper spray. That was
we'll
used.
see if they get to that. Right now, that was just really a narration of the video, which once we get, I think we're going to see is pretty illustrative because it talk about some pretty good details. Detective Slayton took a statement from PT on the 4th at the aggravated assault office at around 8 p.m. PT's statement closely matches the video. The detective watched from the Marriott, the one that we hope to get at some point. PT said Mr. Sanchez opened the driver's side door and PT exited the truck. Mr. Sanchez and PT had a conversation where Mr. Sanchez told PT that he could not be there at the loading dock. This is Mr. Sanchez telling the guy who's doing his job that, dude, you can't be here. PT did not have his hearing aids in because his truck is very loud when he is exchanging the frying oil from the hotel. So he had to lean in close to Mr. Sanchez to hear him. When PT leaned in, he stated that Mr. Sanchez smelled of alcohol and his speech was slurred. PT was confused and stated he needed to contact his manager to find out what exactly was going on. PT described Mr. Sanchez, whom he did not recognize, was well-dressed and groomed. To PT, assumed he could be the manager of the hotel. That's interesting. Mr. Sanchez then climbed up into the cab of the truck and leaned over the driver's seat. And that's one of the individual charges. Basically, it's trespass of the vehicle. And he looked in towards the middle area between the seats. PT told Mr. Sanchez that he was not allowed to be inside of the truck, and Mr. Sanchez came down. Mr. Sanchez kept repeating that he had spoken to a manager and that he did not want PT to do that, replace the fryer oil. Mr. Sanchez then tried again. I'm going to be hanging on this word here. Keep that in mind. Mr. Sanchez then tried to get into, I'm going to say, the truck. That's my guess. Stand by as we look for it. At this point, it's been interesting, from the plaintiff's side, I will call him at this point, but not as dangerous as we believe it gets to be here. So let's see how that evolves even further. Here we go. Okay. Did I get the wrong one? Oh no, I got the wrong page again. Sorry. I go, boy, that looks a lot like the one we just had before. Curious. Okay, let me try and get this. Let me just get the right one here. After number 4, it's very difficult for me. Okay, here we go. Put that up there, like that. Okay, here we go. The truck. And PT stated again that he could not let him in the truck. PT said he knew at this time that he had a problem. PT tried to get his cell phone from the truck, and Mr. Sanchez blocked him from trying to call his manager. PT then walked around the front of the truck, and Mr. Sanchez followed him, but stood near the front of the truck. PT is seen walking westbound off camera to the opposite loading dock area of the Marriott. PT stated that he knew that entry point was the security office for the Marriott, so he was attempting to flag down the security officers to help him with Mr. Sanchez. PT then walked towards the passenger side of the truck, and Mr. Sanchez walked with him. So he makes it sound more cordial than the video described by the cops. PT attempted to get into the passenger side of the truck, but he was blocked by Mr. Sanchez. PT walked back around to the driver's side and again attempted to get his cell phone from inside the cab of the truck, But Mr. Sanchez shoved PT back. PT realized things had escalated and he was now in physical danger. So he reached into his pocket and grabbed his pepper spray and sprayed Mr. Sanchez in the face. PT said that the pepper spray appeared to have an effect on Mr. Sanchez for a moment, but Mr. Sanchez wiped his face and again advanced towards PT. Now, here's a guy, he's what, 6'3", 240, give or take? Does that sound close? You're the Jets fan. Is that in the ballpark?
Well, okay. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, he's a TV broadcaster now, so he doesn't.
So
have
he's
the bulk
thinner.
on
He
him.
doesn't have
He
his.
doesn't have the bulk on him that he did when he was
Okay.
quarterback.
PT thought, this guy is trying to kill me. So he pulled his knife, and when Mr. Sanchez came at him, PT went at Mr. Sanchez and struck him 2 or 3 times with the knife. PT said he found himself flying back into the dumpster and falling onto the pallets on the ground. While he was on the ground, PT was not aware that Mr. Sanchez was physically he was physically doing to him, whether he was punching him or otherwise striking him. And we've seen the photos of him in the hospital. While PT was on the ground, he could only see the feet of Mr. Sanchez coming at him, making PT realize that he was in a life or death situation. Somehow, PT made it to his feet, and when Mr. Sanchez came at PT, stabbed Mr. Sanchez the last time, which sounds like 3-ish times. The next thing PT knew was Mr. Sanchez. I think we have one more page here, folks.
And it'll be interesting when we bring Brett on to talk about the perception of somebody, especially a sports person. You know, there's always that thing that sports players play within the rules because they have rules, but then there's a violent aspect, and I'm a football fan, as you know.
Okay, here we go. This is the final part here. So with a look of shock, that he turned slowly around, and Mr. Sanchez took off northbound in the alley. Officer, let's see, hook that one up there, but here we go. Officer Mark Myers, an evidence technician, processed the scene, taking photos and collecting evidence, which was taken back to the property room. A search warrant was applied, blah, 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 to collect the knife, which was located on the driver's seat. Mr. Sanchez placed under arrest for battery, unlawful entry to a motor vehicle, and public intoxication, which has been updated to, what's the official new charge?
It's a felony assault.
Felony assault.
Okay, it's a felony assault.
So
now, can I just stop and say something that has
I think we're done with it. So go
nothing
ahead.
to do with the case because we're in the courtroom. I want to juxtapose this against Karen Reed, okay, and Massachusetts, and the leaf blowers, and the evidence not being logged, and evidence not being collected. Here you have an assault of a truck driver in an alley who's collecting oil, and everything seems to, from what we see, have been done right. They get the cameras, they get a search warrant, they take interviews, they track down the person who actually was the one who the police say was doing the assaulting, causing the victim to feel PT in fear of his life. All that's done, and within a matter of hours. All right? Okay. Karen Reed, Norfolk County, Massachusetts State Police, Canton Police, take notice.
Yeah. Crazy idea. Investigate. Got it. Somebody had a question here whether or not the driver PT had lost his job. We've not heard that. And I'm not sure that would be that might be a wrongful termination if in
At
fact
this point.
yeah. But
So
anyway,
why don't we?
so that's that. Let's get Brad. Let's get Brad back
in.
here. Sorry,
And as Brad
sorry,
is
we had
in,
you in jail, Brad.
we had
That's
you in
okay.
jail.
How's the audio now? Re-echoing?
Perfect.
Perfect.
All right.
Kay
Sometimes
Schmidt,
the
in the meantime,
gremlins, we can't figure out the gremlins.
Yeah, Kay Schmidt, in the meantime, gifted 5 Justice Serve TV memberships just in time for 5 people to get them so they can hear you. Thank you for joining us. I know it was a lot of trouble for you to rearrange your schedule to come on the air to talk about, explore issues that this brings up. And I know you sent me a couple cases. First of all, what's the status in the NFL? And again, we're not saying Mark Sanchez has any type of early brain injury that would cause him to act like this. What's the status of the CTE investigations? Have there been cases brought in court where CTE has been a defense to any type of assault? And if you do have any type of brain injury from playing football, what's the effect of alcohol? 3 questions.
Wow.
Tough ones.
Those
Wow.
are exactly. Where do we start?
Sorry, you came back on.
Well, forgive me. I think it's really important to start by just explaining, because people hear CTE. CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is
Good. You are so good at saying that.
But really simply, chronic brain damage. Okay, chronic as opposed to acute. So over time, repetitive impact as opposed to single incident brain damage. And so if we demystify it a little bit, I think there's a lot of science and a lot of scholarship that supports the idea that obviously TBI, traumatic brain injury, can lead to all sorts of bad outcomes as far as impulse control, judgment. There's a number of studies that show that if you have, and I think it's very relevant here, any kind of substance abuse issue, it is significantly more likely you're not going to be able to stop, and that your outcomes associated with whatever the substance abuse issues are will be worse. So there's a lot here to think about, I think, just based on that alone. But to answer your question about the NFL, and try and feel free to interrupt at any moment if
no, go ahead. That's what we have you on. You're the expert.
But there was a class action file that we filed originally in approximately 2011 that eventually led to a very unorthodox settlement where everybody who played and retired from football by July 7, 2014 was, unless they opted out of the class settlement, chose to pursue individual cases, was bound up by this class settlement. And there's a whole longer and separate conversation about the good and bad of that. But the general idea was the NFL was really polluting the scientific ecosystem for a long time, as far as injecting itself into the scientific debate over what the effect is of getting hit in the head over and over again. And as you might imagine, when you are a multi-billion-dollar, and at this point, $12, $13 billion a year, revenue company, you have a vested interest in making sure the game continues and making sure that, frankly, not just your game continues, but that you have a feeder system and you have little kids playing football. So the NFL is very much, on the side of wanting to, much like the tobacco industry back in the day, wanting to, lean on whatever limited science there is to show that either things are murky or, does A really cause B kind of thing, isn't necessarily accurate by, in part, doing this hair split thing about CTE versus regular plain old garden variety brain damage, which, as far as outcomes, there really shouldn't be any difference. So as far as NFL cases, there haven't been a whole bunch of individual litigations. The opt-out cases were a bunch of people did opt out from the NFL settlement, but those cases were resolved pretty quickly. As you might imagine, again, one of the things that happens in civil cases is you get into discovery, and sometimes for a whole bunch of reasons, sometimes because they're afraid of just simply cost, but other times I would submit, this one being a good example, where there are some real large skeletons in the closet. There's, the ability and a strong incentive to pay the problem away quickly, which essentially they've done. So on the civil side, there've been some cases brought against the NCAA, college football, and its governing body. Some of those cases have proceeded to trial. Frankly, I think that the actual case in the big picture is quite good, but a lot of these individual cases so far have had a lot of medical red flags that I think make them very difficult. And so there haven't been any jury verdicts in favor of a player yet, or player's family, who was alleging that he developed CTE from football. But going to what I think is central to this matter, and I sent you this case last night because I think it's fascinating. CTE, brain damage in general, I think is hardly an exotic defense to aspects of criminal culpability. But what I think would blow people's mind, and Michael, if you haven't seen it, do you want to take a guess the first time that CTE as such was offered as a defense to criminal charges?
Oh, 2 years ago.
1964.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously?
All the way
1964. Wow.
Did they call it that then? Were they
All the way back
was
in
it
19
recognized as such? Wow.
So CTE has been, just like I made the distinction, just calling it chronic brain damage. Chronic brain damage has been recognized as a medical condition going back all the way into the 1920s. The original science was a guy named Harrison Martland, and he published in this British journal called The Lancet, which is still a very prestigious journal today. And he had entitled it Punch Drunk. And it's very interesting. He I think examined 6 or 7 different brains and it's, not to make light of this, but one of the brains I believe was a midget being shot out of a cannon over and over again. In other instances there were different situations, but they examined the brain tissue and they were able to see this very specific protein called tau protein in really unusually unexpected locations in the brain, and locations that impact in the early stages of CTE, as we've done a lot of studying now, particularly the people at Boston University, has been linked to serious erratic behavior, impulse control problems, emotional disturbances, and often presenting kind of out of nowhere, that sort of thing. And in more progressive stages, like for example, my father, who unfortunately passed away not long ago, and we donated his brain to be studied. It's still being studied, but he had a college football career, an amateur boxing career, and it was essentially fine for most of his life, but developed at a very early age Parkinson's symptoms that didn't really quite fit Parkinson's. And in a lot of these cases with people who've been subjected to being hit in the head over and over again, you do hear, and I would say it's probably to some extent anecdotal still at this point, but you do hear, frequently this concept of this came out of nowhere. What was this guy thinking? And, while I listened to you read, Michael, that probable cause affidavit, I mean, that's just the only thing going through my head. It's just, wow, why is this happening? And not only why is this happening, but I don't know Mark personally. His brother was a quarterback at Yale. I'm very close to the guy who drafted him, Mike Tannenbaum, who was the GM of the Jets, who we were talking last night. And he said that Mark was basically like an uncle to his child, his oldest son. And it's so inconsistent with all of the people who I know, who know him well, that it does raise those questions. And again, as you pointed out, Linda, we're not saying this is the case or anything like that, but I certainly think if I were his criminal defense lawyer, and God knows I shouldn't be, but if I were, that would definitely strike me as an important consideration, because again, there's no history. These are a bizarre and kind of like incongruous series of events, right? Like, what's he doing there? Why is he pulling this guy? All this stuff. And we
don't know his blood alcohol level yet.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. And that's a factor. But then you've got to ask, is he picking up the alcohol just because he's a drinker? Or is there a long-term condition, and is the alcohol a symptom of an underlying pathology?
And we don't know the tox screen either. That could be a factor. Let me ask you this, because as far as I know, CTE is still only.
I'm sorry about wait, Michael, I'm really sorry about your dad also. Michael and I both expressed that. Sorry, Michael.
CTE you can't diagnose until the person's dead. That hasn't changed, correct?
Correct. The CTE diagnosis is one that can only be made. It's not even as simple as a gross examination of the brain. In other words, just sort of like looking at it. But what happens is you donate the brain, and there are a few different institutions that are doing it. They have to do a very specific kind of staining, so it takes a long time. But there are all these what they call clinical correlates that they're starting to develop. And what that means in plain English is there's increasing evidence that shows that the presence of X in the brain is very strongly associated with the activities of Y in life. And that is something that's, I would say, it would be difficult to say again that he conclusively had CTE. And, I'm not sure if there would be, well, let me say it this way. In a civil case, when you're held to a lower standard of proof in the preponderance standard, I think you probably could vault the evidentiary hurdles and make a case. It would be challenging, and it wouldn't be a case I'd frankly want to do, but you could make the case that somebody had CTE without an actual brain to examine. Mm-hmm. But, once it comes to, criminal law and beyond it to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt, and I don't know the burden on an affirmative defense, obviously, but if there's a higher standard of proof, that could be difficult.
How about in terms of the area? We know that it looks like he was drinking. We don't know that. The PT said he smelled alcohol on his breath. Do you know, and I can't speak to this, is the area of the brain that alcohol affects the same area of the brain that somebody who would have CTE affects, or are they two separate areas of the brain? And are the symptoms the same? The non-impulse control, the very strange activities, or are they different?
Well, so one of the things that's very tricky is, life is multifactorial, right? So, yes to everything you just said. Yes, it impacts areas of the brain that overlap with CTE. I have significant ADD, very significant. And I managed to practice law, but my wife jokingly and sometimes not jokingly talks about football being a consequence of, or the ADD being a consequence of football. And the reality is these things, there are enough overlapping symptoms of all these things because it's sort of a mix of what's going on in body chemistry and real life sort of social emotional symptoms, that I think it's challenging to know sort of where one ends and one begins, but certainly you could have both things going on.
So we haven't talked about the lawsuit yet, but the lawsuit does name Fox Broadcasting, Fox Corporation, actually, Mark Sanchez and Fox Corporation. I'm sure they may name other people because he was there for the broadcasting of an NFL game. Would these symptoms, let's for the moment assume this is not Mark Sanchez, this is any football player.
Okay.
Would the symptoms that you saw that Perry told, or that the police at this point, because we haven't gotten to Perry Toll's complaint yet, that the police saw, would somebody who would employ the person know about him? In other words, would a broadcasting company have to see symptoms that would be abnormal, different impulse control issues, drinking issues while they were employed? Would it be that severe or not?
Well, are you asking as far as liability on the part of Fox, or are you asking a different question?
Yes, liability part of let's take any broadcast. Let's say X Broadcasting.
Well, sure, but so it to some extent is a question of state law, whether whether an employee who's sued for some kind of a tort, which is personal injury claim, which is fundamentally what this is, whether there's what's called vicarious liability. Sometimes just simply by virtue of the fact that they employ him, the broadcasting entity could be responsible. The flip side is one of the clear-cut things here is this is way outside of the scope of anything that would be associated with broadcasting or the job. And so I think that might be challenging. But to your point, Linda, if indeed there were signs and somebody could say either you had actual knowledge, broadcasting corporation, of erratic behavior, drinking, what have you, or you don't necessarily have to have actual knowledge. There's a concept in the law called constructive knowledge, which means you should have known. We don't need to prove affirmatively that you actually knew, but you can't just watch some guy staggering around with a handle of Jack on his way into the broadcast booth and say, we didn't know. Right. So.
Yeah. I would also bring them in. just because you want to make them earn their way out. But they really would have to have some bad history with this guy, in my opinion, to find liability on behalf of Fox for what this guy did or allegedly did that night. To me, you'd have to have something pretty damn solid. Like, oh yeah, he does that all the time. He's always getting a little rowdy when he drinks or something. I think it's a tough sell, but I definitely would bring him in. I'd sue him. Yeah.
Oh, I 100% agree. And for that matter, if I were representing Mark Sanchez, I would counterclaim right away in this case. And I would say I expect that to happen. I don't know. You introduced me initially as an NFL player advocate, and that is absolutely true. I was a candidate for the executive directorship of the union. I represent NFL players. Probably close to half of my civil cases involve football. And so I am biased. There's no doubt about that. But I just, even reading this, and even in my head, I'm hearing this 69-year-old guy who says he's afraid for his life. It does almost feel like magic words that, like in a police interview, somebody said to him, "Hey, were you afraid for your life?" And then he says, "Yes." I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see where the evidence takes us and stuff. But certainly, I feel like for optics purposes, if I were Sanchez's counsel, I would not waste time, and I would get out in front of this with a counterclaim, which in plain English is just suing him right back. So essentially, you have like two plaintiffs instead of one, and two defendants instead of one.
Well, if you're the guy stabbed, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
And not only that, we also know that the defense will be, he was threatening me. That's going to be the defense from Sanchez if he chooses to defend, if that tape is not clear, if there's not, an audio on it, and he stabbed me. So that's going to be the defense. He's going to have to testify if he's going to obviously dispute this. That's in my opinion. And I'm sure this is very difficult no matter what, because, right now we just have these very weird set of facts.
We do. And, one wonders how much, he's locked into the statement given to the police that he doesn't remember anything. That could really pose a problem.
Right. That's that's a fact. That's a fact. Michael Bryan, isn't it a fact? What's on the video is a fact, right?
Oh, of course. And I just think the whole setup is odd. The fact that he approached this driver, again, assuming the things we've heard so far are true, and wanted him to move because he somehow pretends he's involved with management of the hotel, and it's his purview to tell this truck where to park or not. That's just weird. And then it escalates from there. So, when we get all of the details, I'm sure that'll become more and more clear, but it'll also reflect better or worse on Sanchez. If we learn that, in fact, that's what he did, and in his mind, that's what he thought he was supposed to do, that's not good.
And the first footage, apparently, guys, the first footage we saw, then the cops got the second footage, and this is why I got elevated to like a felony assault. The new footage showed Mark Sanchez following the driver, and you read this a little bit, blocking access to the truck and shoving him. Then he threw the driver against the wall and to the ground. And that's what tipped this from a misdemeanor assault to a felony assault. That's the footage that the police saw.
This almost screams out, that defense. If this were a lie, couldn't we have come up with something better? In this situation, it's so bizarre that it's just, the guy's coming into town to do a job that he's paid significant money for, definitely well into the six figures. He is an educated guy. He is, by all accounts, a terrific person. Again, I don't know him personally, but I know enough people who have said that where I believe it. And to all of a sudden just break in this direction is really difficult to wrap one's mind around, and perhaps that works to his advantage in a courtroom.
Yeah. Well, Brad, thank you very much for your expertise. We're going to continue on probably
and for your persistence.
Thank you for accommodating the Ransom Everglades cross country team, and I will see you all soon, I hope. But thank you very much.
And thank your daughter for allowing she lets it go down.
She shared. We do appreciate it. Thanks, Brad.
All right,
Brad.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's some interesting insight, from that overlap of attorney slash, he's deep in the NFL, so he's got an insight that not everybody has.
I got you the best expert I know.
You've done all right. You've done all right, partner.
And all. And the complaint, by the way, the complaint is really interesting because it was filed immediately. I mean, the ink wasn't even dry on the felony charge, right?
That's what I heard.
And of course, we should probably show. I don't know if you have it. I sent you in 2014. I didn't like Mark Sanchez.
I know. I did not grab that. I didn't know it was going to become an asset for the show. But yeah, even back then, you were not kind to Mark Sanchez.
I can't. So I just wanted, because I don't want people finding it and saying, "Oh, you're biased." But this was in terms of football. I think he actually was a really terrific commentator. I thought he developed into a really terrific commentator. I was actually surprised. But I do have an asset. Hold on. Okay, asset Sanchez. Let me see. Here we go. I'm just going to show you this. 2014, when he was a Jets quarterback. I don't know if we can see this. I'll add it to the stage.
There it is.
Here we go. The 2014. Who were those New York sports commentators saying the Jets would be better with Mark Sanchez? That would be at quarterback. Really? Us fans, PSL holders, knew better. All right. All right. I'm not saying this, was any type of witchery or sorcery on my part. But that's how I felt as the Jets quarterback. And
so now, don't you feel bad?
Now I feel bad saying I whatever is happening in both of this. I mean, I feel bad for the victim because we're not showing you the pictures. We have them. Okay, you can see them on Twitter. Of this victim. It's bad. I mean, the knife apparently went through his jaw. I mean,
a mess.
All he was doing was doing his
neck
job.
Thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it just, as I said, from the jump, it looks bad for Sanchez. It just looks like he was putting his nose where it didn't belong, and then it got worse. So, and we'll have the civil complaint. I want to get into the Fitzsimmons case. We can either post that, or somebody wants to see it, they can, or we can go over it maybe as a member only or a short. It's not
we'll do a
story. It's when you hear the affidavit, a lot of it was incorporated into that civil lawsuit.
Right. So, I think we can do it. You and I can pre-tape something just going over the civil lawsuit.
Just go through the document because it is civil, so it has different parameters.
And maybe we can ask the attorney for Perry Toll to come on. I would really like that if we're going.
That was Galitko and Daly.
Yeah. So why don't we hold that off and we'll see if we can do that another time. Missy, I know. No, Missy's not been feeling well today. We've been working her too hard, apparently.
Yep. That's true.
And we'll see if we can get the attorney to come on and go through this and some of these issues that we brought up. In the meantime, we have another really important case that we do want to get to. And then
my gosh.
You can't make it up.
Every time I think I've seen it all in Massachusetts, I see more. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to play this audio. Again, here's the backstory.
What is this case? We forgot
Kelsey
to tell
Fitzsimmons. Yeah, we're getting into it. Kelsey Fitzsimmons, of course, is accused of assault in a case in which she was shot, but allegedly brandished a firearm, which caused one of her former partners in the North Andover Police Department to shoot her. Why were they at her house? Because her baby daddy, would-be fiance, had gotten the ex parte order to have the 5-month-old child, his child, removed from her custody because of the postpartum depression that he felt put the child in danger. So they show up on her steps. They begin the process. She's actually beginning, to get clothes and stuff ready to hand this child over. Can you imagine that? All things being equal, can you imagine that scenario?
No, I can't.
So this partner who she worked with is there when she, it's been described in papers by Tim Bradle, half-heartedly pulls her gun and kind of holds it to her head as if she's going to injure herself. That's when the shot is fired. She gets hit in the chest. 53 days in the hospital later, 2 surgeries later, bullet fragment still in her back. She goes to jail for this assault. Not for intent to kill, but just an armed assault. So the lesser charge of those things that were on the table. So the court imposes some restrictions. It says, look, if you want to stay out of jail, among other things, you got to do this SCRAM thing, which stands for Security Something Random Alcohol Monitoring, remote alcohol monitoring, because that way we'll know you're not drinking Not an issue in the subject charges, but something courts do impose sometimes to just, it's not a bad idea. Let's put it that way. So she has problems complying with that because it requires that deep breathing and expelling a lot of air to register. And if it doesn't register and it comes up incomplete, it looks like you're not complying. So to avoid that problem, Tim Bradel takes his client, they go into the court and say, hey, can we just change this, modify it, get it, urine testing, something that's not going to cause her pain? And the court ultimately says, no. I know you say it's like torturing her, but since we don't want to torture her and to comply, she has to do scram, we'll just take that out of the equation, put her back in jail, which is where she now is. So there was a hearing today. I called the clerk yesterday to learn more about the hearing, learned, among other things, that Ms. Fitzsimmons was not going to be transported from Chicopee all the way across the state to Salem, which is, they're really on opposite, east-west sides of Massachusetts. They weren't going to do that. It was a real normal pre-trial sentencing, pre-trial conference, because they're just trying to put the pieces together. What's the schedule look like? Didn't really take into account the fact that this petition had been filed to the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts by Mr. Bradel on behalf of Ms. Fitzsimmons to look again at what the court did in revoking her bond and her release and locking her back up. That's all still kind of hovering. So we weren't sure, is it going to be in front of the judge, that, Ms. McCarthy, or is it going to be a different judge? Nobody really knew, but it should have been a pro forma nothing hearing that handled some of the scheduling matters. This whole thing about going to the appellate court, that's operating in its own universe, right? Obviously it has impact, but it had nothing to do with the hearing today. So from Melanie Little, our new best friend.
We love her. She was on last week.
I stole it. I called. I reached out and said, hey, I want to use this, because I'm not even stripping the audio off. This is her page. And so I want you to listen to it. It was an audio only appearance.
And can I say one thing? The
Sure.
judge had problems because he only had room for 10 people on this Zoom.
And we'll get into that.
10 people. We're going to get into that. But what I want to say is this, and I just posted, I overwrote Missy's discussion of our show. And when we did the thumbnail later on, I said, is there any judge in the lower court in Massachusetts who is not corrupt, mean, or incompetent? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm out there.
You would think that's a hypothetical, but it's really not. That's not a rhetorical question. Okay, so let's see if I can fire off this audio. God hope it works. Tell me if you're going to hear it. Are we hearing anything or not?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Thank you
so
much.
just so I can set this up, that's Mr. Bradel on the phone. They just called the case.
I apologize for the wait. It took us a while with IT to rectify our situation. The call was recorded. I understand. Thank you. Calling number 13 on the list, Commonwealth versus Kelsey Fitzsimmons, docket number 2577 CR 311. Counsel, please identify themselves for the record.
Good morning, James Gibatosi on behalf of the Commonwealth.
Hello, Your Honor. Timothy Bradel for Kelsey Fitzsimmons.
Why are you not here?
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
Why are you not here?
I was told that it was a phone conference.
Who told you that?
That was my impression from the list, Your Honor.
Well, the problem is that this case has tied up our phone lines, created technical problems this morning, the overcapacity. So it's a little bit, it's delayed our proceedings this morning, and it's caused an administrative problem that we've been unable to resolve, and the noise in the background isn't helping any. So there's a group of people here interested in the case, which is fine, but you're not here, and the people calling in are tying up our phone line to the best of our ability and a capacity which I have no control over. So we're in.
Nor do I, Your Honor. I'm sorry about that, but I had the impression, I guess, that it was a phone hearing.
Well, okay. First thing I want to do today is talk about setting a trial date, because this case is, as demonstrated by this morning, is over our capacity, testing our capacity to address it on the phone line, and the noise in the background is interfering with my ability.
Conference is now in silent mode. The conference is now in silent mode.
I've never heard that. I don't.
The conference is now in silent mode.
God, what a
Okay,
mess.
Mr. Bradle, if you can hear me, you need to get up here.
I'd be in jail.
All right,
I'd be
then.
in jail.
Very
I'd be
simple.
in jail.
So, I mean, okay, and this was a Judge Drescher, not Judge McCarthy, who's a female. But clearly, just to cut to the chase as to what happened, and then we have Scott McGinnis standing by because he was up there. So we're going to get some flavor from him. But bottom line is, apparently the judge then spoke to somebody who said, Judge, this was supposed to be telephonic, you idiot. And so Bradle called back in, and they had the hearing, which was nothing really more than a scheduling hearing. And they're going to, shoot for a January trial date, blah, blah, blah.
I'm looking at Judge Thomas Jessler's roving room comments. Okay, I'm not happy with it.
And Melanie, hey Scott, Melanie's quite the poker face.
Hi, Michael.
When the judge said what he did, she was not shy about reacting to that. It was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
So
Scott, you were there.
What was it like up there on the street? What was the turnout like? And obviously, you guys overwhelmed, and the court couldn't handle it.
I got there late because of traffic. There was a major accident. Literally, when I got in front of the courthouse, people were going in. There was at least a dozen, and then there was some latecomers. But I like to stay outside court, and I was actually listening to Melanie Little. And her reaction to Judge Dressler was amazing. Like, what is this guy's problem?
Yeah.
Bradle had to produce the receipt later on. He sent back the email that went to his office that told him specifically this was a phone conference or Zoom. And then Judge Dressler is like, okay, then we'll just set another date.
And then he was totally bending over backwards to help Bradle. Like, well, what works for you? What do you think? I said, because I went on and did some quick reports on it because I was amazed too. And I said, there's no attorney that is going to flagrantly just show up by phone unless he's got it papered. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do, and it's documented somewhere.
You actually feel bad for Timothy Bradle because, he brought in the hearing to, modify, her pretrial probation conditions, and Judge Newman went after him. And this isn't even a probation violation hearing. This is a motion by the defense to modify her alcohol testing, and Judge McCarthy Newman attacked Bradle, and then today Bradle's like, yeah, this is just a Zoom, it's just a call-in, and the first thing the judge does is jump down Bradle's throat.
Why are you here?
What are these people doing?
And now you've physically been there. It's not a huge jurisdiction. It's not a huge community. So everybody knows everybody. The judges in that courthouse all know that Bradle has filed this petition, which poops on one of their own, right? Mm-hmm. So
I'm starting to wonder, with the publicity that this case is getting, I don't think these judges watch LawTubers, but it's pretty interesting. That
I'm not sure they know how it works.
But Judge Dressler was complaining about the amount of purple shirts that were in the courtroom, and
how big was the courtroom? How big was the courtroom?
I didn't go inside, Michael. I stayed outside.
But you know how many folks were in there, right?
Melanie Little was showing the street. You have the old Superior Court, which is a red brick building, which is the second one down on the right. The Superior Court is actually 2 more doors down, the Ruane building, which is a brand new facility, ultra modern, glass walls, 5 stories high. And there's no excuse for that court to not be up to speed with modern technology.
Yeah, that was what amazed me.
About 10 people.
They were up to speed. Don't give me that. They were up to speed. They were trying to. Okay, I'm not a conspiracy therapist, but I think they're trying to what do you mean? you know, you're going to shine a light on my courtroom. No, you're not. I mean, you know, I think they knew. They just didn't realize how many people were going to come out for this because they've been trying to ignore it, and now they can't ignore it. And this, excuse me, Judge.
Yeah, and I didn't even bring my signs out front. I had to park a couple blocks away, and I'm like, oh, do I bring my sign and flag? I had to park in a commuter rail station parking garage.
So on this picture,
and I didn't even bring my signs, but this judge, maybe a dozen people in his courtroom, a couple people outside, including myself, and he's like already like, oh, why are all these people in my courtroom? Like he doesn't like the attention.
It's this brick building here.
That's the old Superior Court.
Michael. And is it the one in the foreground that they actually?
No, you would go 2 more doors down.
I see like a big archway here. Is it that one?
The next court building on the right, past the red brick building,
okay,
is the probate court.
Okay.
Further down in the background of that picture is the new Ruane Judicial Center. That's the new courthouse.
Okay, I don't like the new. I like the old. I like those old ones. Anyway, so I disagree with you, Linda. I think these people are bumpkins, and they've never had to need the technology. 10 people. Why would we ever need more than 10 people on this trunk line that we're using? Because we just don't. Now, are they glad that it didn't facilitate more people? I'm sure they are. But if you listen to them when they're having that back and forth, it doesn't sound contrived. It sounds like we have no clue what we're doing here, and we can't handle this because it just doesn't happen here.
No, but he blames. But Scott, when you came out, where people were talking, this judge blames Bradel for them having only 10 people on the line. He blames Bradel, which means he's blaming Fitzsimmons. How can Kelsey Fitzsimmons get a fair shake anywhere in Massachusetts? She's becoming like Karen Reed. That's what I want to know, Scott. Were you all talking about that?
That's why me and other people that were part of Free Karen Reed are driving up to Salem in October. The traffic and the people, the Halloween tourists, there's no parking. But we're up there to support her because we already kind of, I guess we're kind of like shell-shocked with the whole Beverly Cannoni Karen Reed thing. And not that you want to be a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. But then you see how Judge, McCarthy Naaman did it, and now this judge, this wasn't even like a major hearing, and he's right down Bradel's throat. Why are you not here? My Zoom isn't working. I have these purple short shirts in my courtroom. Just unbelievably ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, when he said you need to be here, that's ridiculous. And luckily, Bradel didn't take that on its face, and somebody did some quick research and then had to, act like, okay, well, we'll let it slide this time. Well, yeah, because it wasn't his fault. It was your fault, Court.
If you look at it sarcastic, it's almost like the Commonwealth and the DA in Essex County, and we haven't done a deep dive into that DA and his state police detective groups. Like, we know Michael Morrissey like the back of our hand and his state police detective groups. But you already have people starting to say, what's the political connection here? Why is Judge McCarthy Naaman and this Judge Dressler today being so aggressive and being so, why are they being this way? I mean, even if you believe that she did, point a weapon at a responding officer and they had to use, deadly force, it doesn't make sense. They try to overcharge her. The grand jury failed to produce a bill
on the intent to commit murder. Yeah.
With the whole being obtuse and ridiculous with her pretrial probation conditions and just sending her to jail. They can't send her to Essex County in Middleton because she's a former correction officer and cop. They can't. I guess they could have sent her to MCI Framingham Waiting Trial Unit, but they sent her all the way out to Chicopee. and they're not willing to transport her from Chicopee all the way to Salem, Mass. People can Google map that and see how long that is.
Well, yeah, I've talked about it. I've been across that. That's the whole state. It's a tour of the state.
But I have a question.
The last time people were in the hearing, they said that the next hearing is going to be Zoom. That's on record.
Bradel said he wanted to be there, and they said we're going to do it remote.
And then the judge jumps down his throat. Why aren't you here? And Bradel was like shell shocked. Like,
I'm sure he was.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I sent him an email.
I'm going to interrupt you guys. I have to know the answer to this question. Okay, because I'm dealing with two guys. You two are gentlemen, right? Both of you are gentlemen. Both of you try to do the right thing. Both of you are ethical. Both of you stand up for what you believe in. Excuse me. Where the F are the effing prosecutors and DAs on the other side who knew this was just a status hearing? Where the F are the effing prosecutors and DAs on the other side who knew that she hadn't violated any of the issues of probation when it came to her alcohol testing? Where the F is anybody in Massachusetts in any of these courtrooms? And hello, Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court and Ethics Board, or whatever you are, because I had a great judge in Hernandez. He was wonderful. He was terrific. He was fair, even though he may have been a little sided with the prosecution. Okay, we didn't have these issues. So where the F are the prosecutors on all these cases now, and where's the head court now? Scott.
I don't know. That's where we go down that rabbit hole. Is nobody was willing to speak up because it starts to look like, oh, we just want her to plead out and have this whole problem go away, whether it was a good shoot or bad shoot. There's no body cams. We just want her to plead out and just, wipe this off the docket. That's what it's starting to look like.
I mean, we haven't even got to the merits of it because there's so much crap in the way. The merits of this case are going to be tricky enough because it's a he said, she said. And she said, he shot. And so to your question, Linda, the prosecutor today said nothing.
Really? Nothing?
Nothing. The prosecutor in the first go-round, when there was the issue about whether she was or wasn't in compliance, the prosecution never said, we're here to violate her. That's not why we're here. They did. I think they did all they could within ethical confines to not help the defense, but not hurt the defense. They were very honest about why they were there and that they weren't making that an issue. We're not saying she was non-compliant. And if you're not saying she's non-compliant, how in the hell is she back in jail? I was looking at
Bradel brought that notion because she couldn't blow into the scram. Bradel
I mean,
probation didn't violate her.
No, nobody did.
And then the judge threw her in jail.
And the probation officer was there to tell the whole story. And she ultimately, ironically enough, on that fourth test, which she was incomplete on, she continued to try it and finally had a complete. So at that point, she was compliant. So there was no way she could be violated. This judge, and this is hard for me to fathom and say, but even Judge Bev Cannoni never did anything so outrageous to take the freedom away from somebody at this stage of any prosecution.
Good point.
I mean, that's a pretty bad measure.
I think silence is the voice of the complicity. I think the prosecutors are just as bad as the judges in these two situations for not speaking up and saying this is wrong. All right. When I was a prosecutor, if I saw something, I said something. Maybe that's not the way you do things now. But, right now, what we're seeing is outrageous. We see great activity from Scott. Scott is there all the time. We see great activity from the citizens over here. What we're not seeing is great activity from the judges and whoever politicians are appointing these judges, okay? And maybe that's why the world is on fire right now.
Well, that's what I've said from the beginning.
I suppose, though, elected judges in other states, you still have, politics. I don't know what the easy answer is.
Of course. My problem is, even when you have rules in place, like the very famous Rule 14, unless the judges hold the parties to those rules, What's it matter? I mean, we look at the Aiden Carney cases where again and again and again they violate the Commonwealth violates the discovery rules. What's the judge say? Well, maybe in 2 weeks, we'll look at that again. Now you're going to give them something, right? You're going to give them something. That was my Doolin impression. So it's up to the judges to do the right thing. And
you would hope any judge, no matter how they got to the bench, whether they were elected, whether they were, as they are in Massachusetts, nominated by sitting governors, once they get to the bench, it's the old Lady Justice with the blindfold on and the equal scale.
Justice is blind, yes.
And when you look at, like, the Karen Reed case, the Aiden Carney case, and now this case, I can't help but think the scale is a little bit toward the state, and now the defendant has to fight their way back to level. Never mind.
Yeah, guilty till proven innocent.
You hate to be that sarcastic or pessimistic about.
How could you not be? How can you not be when you see everything that's unfolding up there in your neighborhood? It's frightening. You just got to think at some point it's got to change.
And me personally, I don't know what happened when those shots were fired. I'm not even claiming.
No, we're not talking about the merits.
I'm just looking at, why is she in jail right now? She has the right for bail. There's things that could be in place to alcohol test her. It's ridiculous. Let's just throw her in jail and make her look bad. We're going to embarrass her attorney every time he comes into court, like Judge Dressler did today.
Yeah, he just embarrassed himself.
Where's the scale of justice?
Yeah, he embarrassed himself. He didn't embarrass Bradel, that's for sure. Well, Scott,
isn't it a way to try to put a wedge between the client and Bradel? The client says, "My God, I'm in jail. Mr. Bradel, every judge has been against him." It may be that they're scared of Bradel so much they're trying to put a wedge in between him and the client, forcing her to get a different attorney, which I don't think is going to happen.
Or to make a deal. But that's horrible too. If that's truly the case, that's outrageous too. Luckily, she was there to see it unfold before they took her back and put her in jail. She saw what was happening, so her attorney didn't have to try and convince her. She saw it. She saw it unfold. And that petition, I know you probably read it, Scott. It lays out exactly what happened. I wish there had been video. The audio is outrageous enough, but I would love to have seen the video so you can see this squirrely judge doing whatever she did to. She was just looking for a way to violate her and throw her back in jail. That's the bottom line. And
that's the way it came across. I mean,
yeah.
And Bradel was offering alternatives to the Scram breathalyzer.
Mm-hmm.
The Scram breathalyzers, they don't really ever issue them unless it's a major alcohol-related crime. Even first offense OUIs in Massachusetts, they don't issue Scrams normally unless it's bodily injury or death, second offense, or the crime deeply involved alcohol. They just don't hand out Scrams for no reason.
I've heard this particular judge, McCarthy, etc., that she likes them for whatever reason.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm out of the game a little bit, retired several years. Maybe the judges use them more liberally now as far as pretrial probation conditions, even if the crime doesn't directly involve alcohol. But the fact that she couldn't blow into the thing, Bradel's like, well, yeah, just go back to the old days. You can just come in and urine test.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just that
blow into the machine. It's that simple.
The lack of common sense and compassion is just unbelievable. And I hope this woman gets hers, whatever that may mean. But we'll see. This thing could be reversed by the end of the week. We know that the DA is replying to the petition on Thursday, and the court, the single justice system, I love, one justice in that circuit will take a look at it, and they have promised. They told me, and Mr. Bradel confirmed this, they very seldom have oral argument for these type of emergency motions. Sometimes, but generally, and they've led him to believe probably not going to need that.
Beverly Canoni got overturned by a single justice in the SJC for Jen McCabe's phones.
Okay, I mean that's a unique thing.
So you can actually, as a defense attorney, appeal a judge to a single justice and I don't know what the percentage is, but
it's an unusual
I would
thing
think a
in
single justice
Massachusetts.
on the Supreme Court is going to rule in favor that Kelsey can be on bail on alternate conditions.
Well, I always hope that smarter people will prevail. That you wouldn't have I don't care if it's a single justice or all 7 of them. Then they're going to look at this and go, "Yeah, that's right. That's the way it should have played out." I'm too naive, I guess. I can't believe that would happen. So I could see by the end of this week, this could have a resolution.
Well, all I can tell you is that as a lawyer, I'm not allowed to badmouth judges. But as a journalist,
please.
I can. Okay, as a lawyer, I could lose my license because you're not allowed to.
Oh, please.
But as a journalist, I can say all we are seeing is a bunch of assholes right now. And it really doesn't do good. It really doesn't do good for the justice system. And if I were a young person wanting to go to be a lawyer, I wouldn't do it right now. I grew up on the old Perry Masons. You did the right thing. Innocent people were proven to be innocent when they were wrongfully convicted. But this is just, to me, this is heartbreaking. To me, it's just heartbreaking what we have been seeing in the system. And tomorrow,
even if a judge believes the state's narrative and that she tried to shoot a cop and she was justifiably stopped with deadly force with a double tap to the chest, one of them missed. Again, it's back to a judge supposedly being neutral and not thinking, she's nuts and she tried to kill a cop. Just send her to jail, and that's what it feels like.
We just don't know. We're guessing what the motivation is for this judge. We're guessing whether she's prejudged Kelsey Fitzsimmons for what happened, whether she just is a control freak. We don't know. And I will say, as an attorney, she is a stinking pile of shit, and I don't care. Report me if you want. I don't care. What she's doing is wrong.
But is she normally like that?
Well, I don't know.
You know what I mean?
We don't know.
I don't know.
We don't know all we can say. And tomorrow, by the way, tomorrow we'll get to see more.
She's normally very even-handed, even pro-defense. And then when you saw her in Karen Reed, her scale went the other way. That's what I hate. So every judge, no matter what their political leanings are, their feelings toward defendants or the state, a judge is not supposed to look at any of that. They're supposed to rule on the law and not pick a side. And it feels like
welcome to Camelot. Welcome to Camelot, Scott. Scott, we thank you for being our boots on the ground, always coming, giving us. We met you the day that Michael was going to be threatened with arrest, leading in, and you've been great. And tomorrow we'll see more about it, because tomorrow I believe that is going to be the hearing on Karen Reed's return of her phones going on. And we're also here at Justice Served TV going to do something different with a little bit of audience participation. We're going to go over Aidan Carney's second motion that he filed with that Mr. Betterow was on the other night talking about it. And we're going to try to do a little bit, get ready for this all, Mad Libs. Or it's going to be called Massachusetts Libs, I guess, or maybe Massachusetts.
You call it Mass Libs?
Mass Libs. I mean, that's not a good idea. That sounds too political. Mad Libs, Angry Libs, fill in the blank Libs. It's going to be audience participation Libs. Let's see if we can figure out what's in those papers that are blacked out, that Betterow and Aidan know, but it's being kept from the rest of us. So
they're out there, filled in out there. If you really hunt deep around the rabbit hole.
And if you want to watch, by the way, we have 2 great episodes up on there. We know we had Aidan Carney on last week. We had Melanie Little on, and we had Mark Betterow on. 3 great episodes. They're still in our library. Please go and watch them, especially the one that Aidan's on, because he was just filed the first motion, and he actually read it before I read it on our show. And everyone's trying to figure out the Mad Libs there. We're going to try to do the second motion that was filed and do Mad Libs and all. So go back to it, listen to it. You're going to get a kick out of it. And tomorrow night, spread the word. Have thousands join us. I don't know do we give any cups or anything tomorrow night?
I don't think we can do that.
Okay.
It doesn't fit the parameters, so I'm sorry, it's not allowed.
Well, I love your show, Linda. Love you, Michael.
Love you too, Scott.
Michael was our mainstream media at the last Turtle Break hearing.
So ridiculous.
He's
Hey,
the only guy out there.
I know. It was like I was a Phil Donahue. Hey, I think this is the first time I've seen you without your hat on. It's a clean look. I like it.
Love it. Love it. You look great. You look great. Show us the shirt. Show us the shirt.
Oh yeah, somebody said they love the shirt. What's the?
Oh, there you go. 2024.
They didn't win the election. Trump did, but you know.
Well, they won something. I'll tell you that.
All
right, man. Thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it, and for all your hard work out there. See you next time.
It's always fun with you guys. Thank you.
Guys.
Take care. Yeah, he's. I know all's right with the world when I go to one of these places and Scott's there. You know, I know that everything's going.
He was going a year before, you know, they even started. He was following Karen Reed every single day. He was at that courthouse. You got to give him credit. I mean, just amazing.
Crazy, yeah. And he does, rain or shine. He likes to stay outside because he has the big flag generally and a sign, and he doesn't want to give that up. And the weather, you know, we've gone through all 4 seasons and we're heading back into winter now. So I know he's going to be out there. So anyway, that's
tomorrow night.
All we got. Yeah, Mad Libs, I don't know. It could be a total failure. It could be a lot of fun, something in between. Who knows? But the document that Aiden sprung on us last week was that supplemental affidavit that Mark Betterow put together. Same, you know, full-throated motion, but a supplemental affidavit containing some other information they'd received. And there are 5 pages, I've looked at it now, that are almost more redaction than not. And those are the pages we'll look at.
That's what we'll look at it. We also have Karen Reed's hearing. You know, maybe we'll
that's an interesting.
Daniel. Maybe we'll check with Daniel, who's to report about that.
For those who forgot what that's about, it's Cosgrove trying to reach into the phones they've still got of Karen Reed to see if there's some sort of conspiracy, you know, witness intimidation. Aiden, I talked to Aiden. He said, you know, we don't care. There's nothing. You know, it's technically under a docket with his name on it, which is ridiculous. But it's not. You know, they're not his phones, and so they already have his phones. And do you think if there's communication with his phone and her phones, that what's on his phone is everything you need? There's nothing else on her phones. So. But the fact is, they don't have any right to it. So so that'll happen tomorrow afternoon. It may be a burger, but we'll find out. We'll see what happens.
We'll find out. We're going to be with you, and then actually, Michael and Brian and I, you don't realize this, but we're going to be taping beforehand because I'm just going to tell you that we have. We're going to be taping a show that we'll be premiering that we're going to be very proud of Friday on Domestic Violence Awareness Month with a very special guest. We won't tell you that right now, and a very special case. Just like we try to shine a light last month on Recovery Month, this will be on Domestic Violence Month. And boy, are there a lot of cases out there. Yeah, but this is an older case. You'll know who this is. She's now become an advocate. But we're not going to tell you because it'll premiere Friday at 6. And as we get closer, we'll reveal who's coming on.
All righty then.
You and I are working tomorrow.
Yeah, it sounds like we got a long day. And then I'll pre-tease this. Tomorrow night, I'll be on True Crime Tonight talking about all of these cases. They're very fat. This is a show on iHeartMedia out of LA, and they're very into all of this Northeast stuff. So I'll be on there for an hour talking about all these cases. Okay, then.
11 o'clock your time. At 11 o'clock our time.
That's right. 8 o'clock prime time in California. All right. And then I'll be up bright and early Thursday morning to head up to the Sean Paul Reyes matter.
Okay.
That's it. All right. Well, have a good evening, partner. I'm Michael Bryant. That's Linda Kenney Baden. This is Justice Served TV. So please try to do the right thing.